Rotarians and guests, it's my great pleasure today to introduce to you, for the second time, Chris Michelmore. The first time I introduced Chris Michelmore was in 1995, the new member of this club. And here we are 17 years later, and I'm introducing him again as a speaker, but not only a speaker, but as our new president. He really doesn't need any introduction. You all know him so well in Rotary, but I will say a few words. I got to know Chris in the 80s, really, as a fellow consultant. We worked on quite a number of major projects around Adelaide, including, sadly, the grandstands across the Oval, which are no longer with us. But I always found him to be a very congenial partner in major projects which require a high degree of interdependence and cooperation as consultants, and Chris, who led a very major firm, Conall Wagner in South Australia, and later became a national partner of that firm, which was a very large firm indeed in Australia, with some 4,000 staff or something in those days. And Chris was the leader of that firm and made a great success of it. His commitment to the community is also considerable. You would know about his commitment to Rotary. He's given an awful lot of time to Rotary. But he's also the director of the Sonic Homes and the director of the Adelaide Symphony Orchestra. So his commitment is considerable these days. Chris is a leader by example. He manages to hide the steely determination to get things done behind an affable and friendly exterior. His abilities in this regard creep up on you, but I think you will, during the year, appreciate that you will get things done. We're in for an interesting year, and Chris will talk to you a bit more about that today. Can I introduce to you all Chris Michelmore?
Thank you, John, for that very generous introduction. I decided that I would speak today, and at the risk of boring you all, I'm standing in the way of something more interesting from outside the club, because I thought it was appropriate to outline a number of things that are in my mind and in the mind of the board as we enter the new Rotary year. The first thing I want to do is, again, as I did briefly, 2 weeks ago, pay tribute to past President Bryan Harris and to the executive and board of the last year. And in doing that, I want to reflect briefly on a very good year over which Bryan and the board presided. Continuing fundraising success, we were party to raising over $300,000, about $250,000 of that being directly in Rotary Club of Adelaide hands. The homeless youth initiatives, which was very much the brainchild of Bryan and of John Gowan, and which Bryan asked me to also be directly involved in, and I was very pleased to do that. A successful club trip to Penola a couple of months ago. Very good meetings with excellent speakers, and that was a tribute to the chair of the committee, Stephen Haynes, now your vice president. Also further progress in the hands of Simon Drew and Carol Proctor and others in the modernising and streamlining of clubs' procedures and practices. and systems, very, very important things, and I should mention Edri Sistanino, I should say, in that context as well. And of course, again, the Changemaker Award, which came to the District Governor a couple of weeks ago, and which Mayor Stephen will formally present probably in a couple of weeks' time. So, a very good year from which to move forward. Very good indeed. And so I thought I'd outline, as I say, some of the things that are in my mind as we do that. First of all, fundraising. There will be no significant change in the regime. We'll continue to focus on Magic Show, Trailblazer, and more recent advent of Fools and Bears, which was run very successfully 2 or 3 weeks ago again. Those will certainly continue and will perhaps be the backbone of our fundraising efforts. But there are many others, of course, both fundraising and community service projects such as wood sales and the books program, and I won't run through the list because there are many and varied and all a very important part of what we do in the community. In fundraising, I should also mention, of course, it will very much be our objective to relieve you, every one of you, of a few dollars every week that you come. You wouldn't expect that to change, I'm sure. I've spoken already about the Homeless Youth Initiative, which I'm also passionate about, and which has got off to a good start with both our research project and our mentoring project for unaccompanied minors. I would like to see, during the course of this year, the club identify further avenues for contributing to this very worthy area. It is an absolute tragedy in my mind that to see homeless kids and homeless people generally, I suppose, but particularly kids in our city. You do see them, and something stuck in my mind when Brian and Giuliano and John Govan and David Egan and I had a meeting with the Service to Youth Council last year while we were exploring opportunities. The CEO of the Service to Youth Council said, and by the way, he was delighted, as was everybody that we spoke to hear that the Rotary Club of Adelaide was going to directly engage in this area. And he said, in response to a question, what can we do in kind? I mean, money is one thing, but what can we do in kind? And he said, well, we can work out a number of things, I'm sure. But one thing that every member of your club can do is to become an ambassador for the homeless. And we asked him, of course, what exactly he meant by that. And he said, well, too many people in our community dismiss the homeless by saying, well, I just get a bloody job. Well, of course, the tragic fact is that well, there's certainly probably a few bad eggs amongst the homeless, just as there are bad eggs anywhere. The great majority of homeless people are there because they just have no choice. You know, particularly the young, they've been kicked out of home, or perhaps even worse, they've run away from home to escape abuse. And so what he meant, he went on to explain what he meant by ambassadors for the homeless. He meant that your club would really, over time, would make a difference if you were all intolerant, if you became intolerant of negative attitude towards the homeless. In other words, recognise that it's a tragedy, not anybody's fault, certainly not a willful thing. It's a tragedy and should be recognised as such. So I would ask you to join with us, having asked me to chair the Homeless Youth Committee last year. I've turned the tables on Bryan Harris by asking him now to take it back again now that I've become president. So as we do these things, I would ask you all to support the initiatives as they come through, to support the mentoring program that we have for the unaccompanied minors, and to become ambassadors. We will also, as the year proceeds, be continuing to support the student exchange program, and of course we have living evidence of that here in the meeting today, I'm delighted to say. And we will also lend this club's strong support to the group study exchange program, which has gone on sometimes with, but often without, our direct support over previous years. I think it's a very good program for worldwide fellowship and cooperation, and so we will be doing whatever we can in that area. As a personal aim of mine, and Brian and I have discussed this many times in the lead up to his year, and certainly throughout his year, is to re-engage this club with the City of Adelaide. We've always had the Lord Mayor always for a long time, we've had the Lord Mayor, excuse me, as an honorary member of this club, but I think it is fair to say that we haven't engaged with the City Fathers and the Lord Mayor and the City generally in quite the way which I think we should. We're, after all, the Rotary Club of Adelaide. And I'm delighted to say that through the discussions which we had in the homeless youth arena, we have struck a very good relationship with the current Lord Mayor Stephen Yarwood and his assistants, and it's my intention through the year to consolidate that. The Lord Mayor is even talking, I haven't heard anything about it for a little while now, but he's talking about getting our club engaged with him in a specific project in India, and I think that would be wonderful if we could do that jointly with the City of Adelaide. So that pretty much summarises my aims and objectives as we enter this year in terms of community service, but there are a number of things in the area of the club itself which I have initiated, or I'm going to initiate, and you've already observed some of them in the general order of our weekly meetings, today and last week. But before I come to that, I want to speak about membership. Membership is an issue for every Rotary club, certainly in this state, I think certainly in Australia, and for almost every Rotary club around the world. Some are in a more fortunate position than others, and we're in a pretty good position, I must say, but it is an ongoing problem of maintaining membership, and in particular attracting younger, and by younger I mean not as young as Andrea, I mean under 50 really. No, we need more members who are in their 30s and 40s, and it's a common problem and one we need to address. I must say that I think that the activities of this club in recruiting new members have been excellent over the years. What we haven't been quite as good at is retaining members. There's not much, a few of our members of course have died, not a whole lot we can do about that. And some members move interstate, and you know that's just a part of life. But we have lost a number of members who've joined the club and then drifted away again in a relatively short space of time. And we're agreed, when I say we, I mean the leaders of the club, are agreed that we need to do something about that, and that is why we've instituted a new committee, the Mentoring and Development Committee, which Catherine Casey has agreed to run. I think it's a very important thing. She's got a hand-picked team of about 10 who will be directly involved in that, but I would like to think that that initiative has the support of every one of you, and that we make it our business to go out of our way to make new members welcome, to sit with them at lunch to discuss life, and make them feel as if this is a place they want to be at 1 p.m. on Wednesdays. So please, I'd ask you to support Catherine and her team in that. It's, I think, a very important thing. If we can halve the number of departures that we get, then we will stem the situation we've had at the moment for the last considerable number of years. We've recruited X number each year, quite a good number, but lost as many, and so our total numbers have stagnated. We've set the objective this year of increasing from 193 members, which is what we are at the moment, to 200. And I think a large part of it will be retaining a few more. In the membership area itself, we've rather than have 4 committees, which is what we had we've amalgamated those into one committee, which John Hendrickson chairs. But in John's current problem with his illness, Cam Pearce, Director Membership, will take direct control of that. And under that committee there are 4 streams headed up by John Seaton in individual recruitment, Charlie Siciliano in corporate recruitment, Peter Neal in Friends of Rotary, and Jenny Garon in the Business Networking Initiative. All of those are important to recruitment to our club, and they will be acting in their own individual areas, but also interacting to make sure that we optimise the membership recruitment drive. Another important part of that is the creation of a new position of membership secretary to sit across the mechanics, if you like, of the membership process, the applications, the approvals, the inductions, the whole process. And Dick Johnson, who recently retired as Director Membership, has kindly agreed to take that role for this year. So Dick will be Membership Secretary and will be working with Cam as the Director and with that committee I just mentioned to optimise our recruitment for the year. Finally then, we come to the meetings themselves, and I think that the quality of our meetings, the interest, the fun of our meetings is fundamentally important to all of us as existing Rotarians, and perhaps even more important if we are to attract new members. I've attended a few functions recently with incoming presidents where they've been asked to expound on the plans for the year, and they almost invariably talk only about service. You know, we're going to do this project and that project, we've got this initiative in the Solomon Islands or whatever it is. And that's fantastic. I mean, none of us can imagine Rotary without a very significant service stream. But I don't think you attract too many new members by talking to them about those sorts of things. The way you attract new members is to get them to come along here and have a thoroughly good and interesting time at 1 p.m. every Wednesday. Make it somewhere that they want to be. And in many ways, our hour in the middle of the week defines what we are as a club. We are a club, and a club is defined as a group of people who get together for common purpose. And that common purpose, I think, aside from the service, is simply to enjoy each other's company. And that is why you have already witnessed some changes in the order of the meeting, so that we can get a bit of time simply to enjoy each other's company at the tables. I don't particularly like the word fellowship myself. Sounds a bit old-fashioned, but simply to say we leave 7 or 8 minutes between the time that the sergeant finishes the session to the time that the chair of the day stands up to introduce the speaker. And I think that will be an important part of our own enjoyment and of making the meetings attractive to potential members. So that's the streamlining process, and Simon Drew did a very good job last week of explaining the new role of the sergeant, which is really, simply put, to conduct the business of the day, as well as to relieve you of those few dollars that I spoke about earlier. I mentioned the word modernise. I have, and this is where I get into perhaps sensitive zone, because the last thing I would want to do is ever to throw away the best of Rotary traditions. However, I have felt for some time that Rotary in general, and that includes this club, need to be a little bit more modern in the way that we conduct our business, to minimise the protocol, if you like. And I think that the changes, I hope that as the year proceeds, that we will see that the changes I've talked about will do that. And that brings me then to 2 things. One is the beginning of the meeting and one is the close. You've already heard today that I have proposed and I intend to continue to propose 2 toasts at the start of the meeting, to Australia and to Rotary. I've been thinking about this for a long time, and it seems to me that those two things are the ones that every member, every person in this room can embrace wholeheartedly, Australia and Rotary. And it has also seemed to me that in the past to concentrate simply on the Queen and the people is to set aside many other aspects of what we mean by Australia: the land, the Indigenous people, our culture, our system of government, our democratic, friendly approach to life. They're all part of Australia, and I believe that by simply toasting Australia, we embrace all of those things, including our head of state, who happens to be the Queen. And I might say, in doing what I've done, that I am the most ardent admirer of the Queen. I think she is an absolutely extraordinary person, and it's for no disrespect to the Crown or to the Queen herself that I do this. It's simply to bring it, to put a more modern face and a more perhaps complete face on the toast that we give. And I liken it in a way to what we did, the government did in 1974 or 5. Gough Whitlam it was, who changed from God Save the Queen to our current anthem. Now, some people think that that was the wrong choice, but the fact was that we gave it an Australian emphasis rather than anything else. And the next day the sun still came up. The next day the Queen was still the Queen of Australia. And guess what? 38 years later, the Queen is still the Queen of Australia. And I don't think people these days think too much or take objection to the fact that we moved on from the old anthem to the new. I liken what I've done with the toast to that, and I hope that you will embrace that as we go forward. So we will toast two things: the country that we all love, and Australia, and Rotary, the movement we all love. And we will continue to sing the national anthem at the end of the meeting. And I want to leave time at least for a couple of questions, so I'll conclude there and invite just that.
If we're going to be toasting to Rotary, why are we not toasting Rotary International? We've already mentioned Australia, so it should be Rotary International.
Yeah, there is a good answer to that, Anne, and that is that if you toast Rotary International, you must not do that under Rotary rules without having a formal response from past district government. And I don't think we want to do that every week. And then, in any event, again, I will apply the same argument. If you toast Rotary, you're toasting Rotary International, the Rotary movement around the world, this club, the district, everything.
Anything else? Yes.
Ralph.
Why delete the people of Australia? The people of Australia, because Australia is a nebulous thing, but the people of Australia mean something.
Yes, well, I'll just say again quickly what I said before, and that is that, to me, of course, the people are probably the essence of it, but the land is equally important. The head of state, our system of government, our sporting. If you say Australia, in my mind, you're embracing and celebrating all of those things.
Yes. Anybody else? Any other questions? Yes.
Peter.
President Chris, I'm a silly old man. I'm just about out of this show anyway. I'm past getting into dementia. But the toast to the Queen has been sacrosanct as long as I've been in Rotary. And I just am amazed that any one person, perhaps one or a board, has decided to remove it. I don't give you the right to remove it unless you go to this whole club and have a plebiscite, a vote on it. But to me, the Queen is very necessary in our country.
Thank you, Peter. Look, I respect that view, and I dare say that you're not the only one. I was going to say this earlier, but I didn't want to. Time was a bit against me a bit. I've consulted pretty widely. That's the wrong thing to say. I've consulted with a number of senior Rotarians about this issue, and they all supported my view. I include in that, and I want to specifically name 4 people, past President Bryan, perhaps even more to the point in terms of the future, President-elect Frank O'Neill, District Governor, sorry. Okay. You're not reneging on me, Frank. District Governor Honorary Member, and the chair of the day, John Morford, and I specifically asked John because he was going to introduce me and I didn't want to do anything with which he objected, but also because John is a very experienced Rotarian. He's also OBE, AM, and for many years was British Consul in this state, and he supported what I was doing as well. I might also say, Peter, that it is by no means universal that, and I did some research on this, as you might imagine, it's by no means universal that the Queen is toasted. It's not even universal in England. There's a lot of, well, a significant number of Rotary clubs in England who toast, I don't know exactly, I think they even may vary, but who don't specifically mention the Queen. And my intention is not to exclude the Queen, certainly not to disrespect the Queen, but to put our toast in a way which is attractive and amenable and acceptable to all Australians, particularly young Australians.
Could we not have a poll, an official poll?
I think you just heard the answer, Peter. The members don't seem to be in favour of that.
Can we move on? Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
I have 2 more questions, and then, because I'm going to file again in closing the meeting.
Yes. One here.
Nothing stopping that. Future president changing it and doing this great, massive demand change.
Indeed. And if I have 100 Rotarians coming to me tomorrow saying this is wrong, then of course I have to reconsider. And a future president may very well reconsider.
One more.
John, and then Tony. Then
I just want an imported 80-year-old Scotsman say that I support your suggestion that we don't toast the Queen.
Thank you. I don't want to, the last thing I want to do, the very last thing I want to do is for this to become a divisive issue in the club. But, I think we would all agree that to put a modern face on our club so that we can attract young members is very important, and I see it as part of that. Tony, do you have a question?
Very quickly, President Chris, I'm wondering if on the roster for the speakers, once every 5 weeks or so, we could get 3 Rotarians to get up and say what they're currently doing, what they did in the past. I mean, how many of us sit here and think, I wonder what so-and-so did for a living, does for a living, or, and it's something that I know we've talked about in the past, but perhaps the Speakers Committee could look at the possibility of doing that, going around, getting 3 to stand up and say, this is my story.
That's a good idea, Tony. We've done it to a certain extent, but perhaps not as much as we should. Is Juliana here today? No. Juliana Reck is now chairing the Speakers Program Committee. He's doing a great job. We've already got a full program through into September, and a lot of very good speakers lined up for later in the year already. So I'll put that to him, and I'm sure he'll respond. I want to say one other thing about the toast, and that is that, because I meant to say it earlier, we will, of course, if we have the Queen's representative, the Governor, we have the Governor attend here several times a year. I'm still hoping to get the Governor-General to speak to this club later this year, and fingers crossed that will happen. Of course, if we have the Queen's representative physically with us, we will toast the Queen.
Thank you very much, Chris. I think you've all learned that we're in for quite an interesting year. think Chris is going to lead from the front. He is a leader. He's made some pretty controversial decisions already, as you've heard today. I think, however, that they're all good and sensible ones, and I for one support him, and I hope most of us here will do the same. Would you join me in thanking Chris very much? And,